How's it going, guys? Welcome in to Rover Sports, the podcast. I have a Daniel Jones video that is coming out. It's 30 minutes of blabbering about Daniel Jones, but this is not about Daniel Jones. This is about NBA basketball, and I welcome Davey Horns to the show. David.
How are you doing today, Spencer?
I'm doing quite well. I'm energized. There's a playoff game tonight. You know, juices are flowing.
Spencer, how did you feel last night after your 76ers came out to a big 14-point win over the vaunted Boston Celtics?
Oh, man, how did I feel last night? I felt pretty damn good about that defense. I just think that, you know, even though the offense is such a work in progress, it's just Al Horford Smart, Josh Richardson, and Matisse Thybulle. I mean, this is going to be such an unpleasant experience for teams in the East to play the 76ers.
I mean, my biggest concern with the 76ers might have nothing to do with, you see, you know, nose-wise, is last night I was watching Josh Richardson, and I was looking at his braids. They were awfully tight. It was kind of hard to watch, but
the braids?
You know, I feel like his braids, yeah, it feels like his head must hurt. The braids were tight. Like, I don't know what's going on there. You know, I think they're going to have to loosen them up, but as a team, they looked good. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. You know, they in the NBA where common culture is you're giving up about 110 points a game. So everyone's scoring a ton of points every night. To hold a team to 93, I mean, pretty good. Back in the day in the 90s, you know, 93 was kind of like where it laid. But
93 is a W, you know, back in the 90s, man. Back when they would pound the ball to the ground.
Yeah, but the Sixers, they look good. Ben Simmons looked good. I didn't see him shoot any threes, so we know that's a myth.
Yeah, I didn't even see him shoot any mid-range jump shots. And to tell you the truth, I mean, Tobias had a big night, but the team offensively, still a train wreck. Even Embiid, I mean, I don't know. You've watched a lot of Joel Embiid. This is very unpopular to say in Philadelphia, but I try to be very, very objective. I think that Embiid is a little bit overrated. Just offensively is a clunky guy. Like, it's just that he's 7'2". He's a great defender. He's very clunky offensively. He kind of always has been. Dave, I must have lost you.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry about that. What's going on, man? Did I scare you away?
It like went out for a minute.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, I still think
but I would agree with the Embiid take. We'll just get back into it. Think about Embiid. It seems like he needs what'd you say?
I didn't say anything. I was just making sure sound was working well. I got you.
Okay.
Again.
Okay, we're going to go right back to Embiid. The thing about Embiid is like, one game he'll take over and you watch him and you just can't help but say this guy, he just looks like the best player in the NBA some nights, right?
Right.
That's just the way it looks. Like for one individual night, that's kind of the way it is. With him, I would agree. It's like if the jump shot's not flowing, you know, if everything doesn't seem to be great, if he's not completely healthy and never seems to be there, he's just a very, very good player, and he's not of that superstar level kind of, you know, how do I say it? He's not definitely taking you over the top. I think he can on individual nights. I think Embiid's a great player. I think the knees, the injuries, and things like that get to him on a night in, night out basis. And it kind of holds him back from being, you know, consistently every night type of a dude. And I'm so sick and tired of listening to people tell me that, you know, Embiid's going to come out with this new force this year, and watching Kawhi Leonard's ball hit the, you know, beat them when it hit the rim 10,000 times, you know,
yeah.
That's what sent them home. Like, I just want to put this out there. If Kawhi Leonard misses that shot, the Sixers still don't win that game. The game goes to overtime at that point. So it's not like
exactly.
It's not like they were winning in some bizarrely fluke shot, you know, completely beat them, and, you know, they probably go into overtime and the Raptors win from there. I'm just going to put that out there. But Embiid's a great player. I wouldn't put him in that top 5, top 10 mold of players, especially with the health issues. Even last year, had to take a couple of games off in the playoffs. He's just never going to be that guy who it seems like can ever take that next step, at least health-wise. And that's a big part of when you're evaluating players.
No, that's exactly right. And he has a good mid-range game. The days when he is like, at all strength, like defensively he can block shots and he can hit the mid-range jumper. And when the free throws, that's a tough word for me to say with my TH impediment, but free throws, when that's happening for Embiid, he can really be like as good as anybody. I don't think that this Embiid thing is going to be a long-term like success. I think he's in his prime right now. And it's funny when you look at the 76ers overall, I mean, Tobias Harris is a very good player. I actually like his game a lot. You have Ben Simmons, Toby, Embiid, then you have Al Horford, Feibel, and Josh Richardson, and then that's pretty much the team. The bench isn't even that great. I know that we're trying to get sold on Furkan Korkmaz, but if the Sixers played in the West, like if they played against Denver or the Trailblazers, how would they do in the Western Conference? Because in the East, it looks like the Sixers have a wonderful chance to beat a Milwaukee team that doesn't have a lot of talent other than Giannis. It looks like the Sixers are going to win the East, but out West, how would this team do?
Well, first of all, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, the East.
We'll hold up on that because I think we're brushing the Bucks aside way too quickly. But
okay,
I think in the West, the Sixers would be. I hold the unpopular opinion that the Lakers are a disaster. I think that in the West, they would probably be anywhere from a 4 to a 5 seed, somewhere they fall in that range. They have a bunch of talent, I think the idea that they add Al Horford really, I'm not going back to the Embiid point, but it's kind of that protector of the idea that Embiid is always kind of hurt, So they've kind of protected themselves. Obviously, two different players, but, a very capable player, even though they're playing in the same starting lineup. I mean, Mike Scott's a good piece that, it gets you a lot of long threes, Feibel, these guys. Yeah, I think about 4 to 5 seed probably be fair,
Right.
I think that's kind of where they land. I think this is what they are.
Yeah, do you think that Brett Brown is holding this team back, or do you think that the team just doesn't have a lot of scoring talent? Like, do you buy into the fact that the coach is holding them back?
Honestly, the thing about the coaching is like, okay, you could in theory say Brett Brown is holding them back. Maybe you could, but my thing with that one is, unless you were to replace Brett Brown with one of the truly special coaches like a Doc Rivers, a Greg Popovich, something of that mold, as much as it might hurt me to say, a Steve Kerr, a Nick Nurse, something like that, Brad Stevens maybe, he's not necessarily holding him back because the next guy you replace him with isn't going to necessarily be that much different. It's not going to, unless the guy you replace him with ends up being into that special mold of coach, I don't think that Brett Brown itself is holding this team back. I think you just get to a point in the NBA where you are what you are. And talent in the NBA, there's no such thing as getting lucky in the NBA. You may get lucky for a play, maybe one night, but over the 82, you don't get lucky. And you just kind of become you are what you are. It's very much like baseball,
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, yeah,
you don't get lucky.
Might get a call.
No, you don't get lucky. And this Sixers team, like in the playoffs, is going to be all right. I think we have to see how I think Richardson can derail this team. Like, he's such a ball hog that I think he could derail the team later on. And he's kind of going to be like a Covington where they love him and hate him. But the defense was great. I mean, before we wrap up this game, like Kemba Walker, I still have I do have confidence in Kemba Walker. In Charlotte, initially, I thought the guy was a ball hog. Like, even though his personality is a great guy, I still think that Kemba at times was a ball hog, but I think this Celtics offense can still be really good. Like, they're still interjecting in these young pieces. Defensively, you have Cantor. You need another big guy. Like Robert Williams is going to have to be that big guy to play D for them. Like, how worried are you about the Celtics, I guess, with their start? I know it's one game. What do you think about this Celtics team, though, before we talk about other games?
I think the thing about the NBA, which, it's an underrated aspect, I think, at times, it's good teams that change point guards, all right? A point guard is almost like your quarterback. And you could say, you can't compare, the quarterback position to anything in the NBA, but, this is the guy who's controlling the game for you. I think he's just trying to feel out, it's going to try to take him 10 games. In the NBA, it takes about your first 10 games of the NBA season, whether anyone wants to acknowledge it or not, people within the NBA will tell you your first 10 games are basically like a glorified preseason that are just being played at full slate. Guys are still trying to learn each other. You're still trying to learn your offense. I mean, look at the preseason in the NBA. It's as much of a joke as it is in the NFL, pretty much. Most of the time, these guys play about 2 games, and they're playing about 24 minutes max. Maybe some teams will play a guy 30 minutes. So they're still trying to learn each other in live competition. My biggest thing for the Celtics right now is the offense looks clunky. I think that will come. Kemba Walker's a great player. I think the contract's a little long for him, but that's what it takes to get a guy in the NBA. It's 4 years. But for me, for the Celtics, it's the 5 position that really is concerning. As Cantor can't guard a soul. I mean, unless it's like your traditional, bang, bang, bang. And it's the reason why he was able to guard Jokic last year. It's probably like the only guy he can guard in the NBA. Unless the guy's a banger, Cantor can't guard him. You put Cantor into a pick and roll, and he's one of the worst defenders in the last 10 years into the pick and roll. And Robert Williams is one of these guys who looks lost. I mean, maybe he's still a year away or whatever it is. He's not ready. And if I'm Danny Ainge, I'm already looking into the December 15th, when the free agents who signed this year can be traded. I'm looking for a 5-man right away. I'm scouting it right now because that's what's going to hold them back. They have no 5-man. Losing Aaron Baines for this team over the last couple of years, it's really hurt them,
Well, I wanted to ask you, will Taco Fall be able to guard a pick and roll?
That's a process. I wouldn't expect it this year.
Do you think that Fall can actually play in this league? Because he's actually fat. Like, he's actually kind of athletic. Like, I would love to see him play in this league.
I think Taco Fall, you've got to give him time in the G League to develop it. I think he can play in the league. I think there is a spot. I just don't think it's going to be, this year.
But Williams has the ability, though, you're saying. He just needs to be coached somehow and somehow follow the game plans. You're saying Williams should be the guy.
Williams could be the guy. Williams has the talent. I don't think that Williams has sometimes I question the mental capability of him. He's a guy who comes with major baggage. Remember, this is a guy who, after draft night 2 years ago, went missing for 7 days, and they couldn't find him in the I think the reason he doesn't play in the summer league, not this last offseason, was when he got drafted 2 years ago. Was they couldn't find him literally for 7 days after he got drafted.
He lost phone service. He took the check and ran.
Yeah, you get cell phone fell in the water, and just he didn't know exactly where to be.
The alarm didn't go off. He was hanging out with Ryan Mallett, and the alarm didn't go off.
Yeah, so he basically is one of those weird dudes,
Right.
I don't know that he, I don't know he has the mental capability of being a pro that wants it the way that he really should with the talent that goes along with it. I think the Celtics are going to be looking for help at the 5-man completely. Taco Fall's at least a year away, in my opinion. As Cantor is a good backup big in the NBA, but if you're counting on him to be your starter, I mean, last year with Portland, you saw the best as Cantor you possibly could because you basically got two of the few matchups that actually worked out great for him for a long time. And what were those matchups? It was Steven Adams, who really can't shoot past 12 feet, and it was Jokic, who is a true banger. Even at times, Jokic exposed as Cantor. So, Let's go on to the next team. What we got next?
I'm going to open up a take, and I know that you are probably going to agree with this take, and I haven't spoken to you about this yet in our pre-production meeting. But if you go on Twitter last night and you watch Kyrie Irving and his 50-point performance, I mean, it was incredible. The dribbling, the three-point shots, the momentum that he carried with him in the game. He certainly looks happier. But I also saw this sentiment from people, and maybe it's just young basketball fans, but I saw a sentiment from Boston Celtics people that they're like, oh, man, this makes me sad. Oh, man, we had him. What happened? We lost him. Why'd we let him go to the Nets? Now Kyrie is killing it. Like, I saw Celtics fans really getting, like, kind of jealous at this Kyrie Irving show. And I just feel that Kyrie Irving is kind of all flash, but I don't think that he's substance. He's kind of like an Odell Beckham Jr. And for this Brooklyn Nets team that really doesn't have an identity, Kyrie can kind of run his own show. Like Kenny Atkinson or Chucky Atkinson can just sit off to the side and Kyrie can put on the show. It will be fascinating when another guy comes in like Kevin Durant. I think with that Kyrie Irving, it was an incredible performance, but Celtics fans should. I don't think this guy is necessarily going to win games with this style at all or make friends in the locker room. What do you make of Kyrie Irving, the 50-point game, and everything that's going to come with Kyrie for this Nets team?
I mean, first of all, incredible performance, like you said. I mean, the funniest take I saw today was when Stephen A. Smith, after a loss, and Kyrie Irving drops 50 points last night. That's could be a 3 or 4 seed in the East. Let's pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes on this real quick, all right? They lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it took Kyrie Irving having one of his best nights ever to lose the game by 1. Kyrie was great last night.
It reminded me of Iverson. It was that great.
Yeah, and here's the thing, though, about Kyrie. I'm not going to take anything away from Kyrie. I'm going to, I think there is substance to Kyrie. I think Kyrie's a great player. I think he lifted his team up majorly last night. I don't think that there was anything he did wrong last night, to be quite honest with you, But the thing about Kyrie, this is Kyrie in Kyrie's best form. It's when he's the guy, on a team that's kind of like, in my opinion, could be like a 7 to 6, 7, 8 seed type of team, where there's no one really else that really has the expectation of getting the ball. This is Kyrie in his best form, where kind of last year, where what did you see? Kyrie had to be the guy, but there were still other good players around him, and that's kind of where Kyrie gets hurt at times. When he was with the Cavs, he wasn't the guy, and he was a perfect sidekick, and he didn't really dominate the ball the way he did last night.
Yeah.
This is what Kyrie really wants. Kyrie wants to be this guy right now. He doesn't want to be the guy that's going to play with Kevin Durant, and I'll tell you that right now. When that happens next year, this is like a honeymoon phase for Kyrie right now. He's going to get the year where the ball's in his hand, and he's just doing whatever he wants with it. This is honeymoon shit right now.
Right.
I mean, there is no one else on that team to impose their will to really also demand the ball. I think Kyrie, this is, how do I say it? I'm trying to think of another great comparison. It's very much like Iverson. It's like, there's nothing he's going to do wrong in some ways.
How about Russell Westbrook?
He's the best. I think Westbrook actually brought his team down. How about that? At times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Kyrie's going to bring this team down. I think he's only going to elevate them to be the best they can. I think Kyrie brings the team down when he has talent around it, a la Westbrook has in the past, when they had the Kevin Durant, when they had the James Harden and Kevin Durant. You kind of suck the team down with you. But, yeah, this is a perfect situation for Kyrie Irving. If I'm Boston fans, well, you know what? You guys ran him out of town actually personally, so I don't want to hear it. And it's kind of just going to be Kyrie's playground for the year. I think this team could be a 6, 7 seed. I would not be surprised if this team does not make the playoffs, though. I don't think the team's very good. I think the team's completely flawed. I think I think the signing that, Net fans are going to absolutely be ruining over by next year is the DeAndre Jordan signing. The guy is archaic brand of himself. He's not the same athlete that he once was. You'll still see him over the rim. He's still a strong guy, but the guy has no skill. He's not quite the same athlete that he was 4 or 5 years ago. And with a guy like that, being just a shade of yourself as an athlete, you go from being an elite level athlete to be a very good athlete. It makes all the difference in the world. He doesn't guard the pick and rolls. He allowed Cat to pop like 3 straight times in the third quarter yesterday without guarding him. That's why he barely plays. And, Kyrie's only going to take them so far. I think the team is flawed. And once again, it's not going to be Kyrie's fault. He's going to do everything he can. It's what it is.
I think it's Kyrie. I think it's Kyrie in his best light because he doesn't have any expectation. And when he had to play in a structure like Brad Stevens, Stevens calls plays. And as a coach, you just got to be hands off with a guy like Kyrie. It's why, as a coach, I wouldn't really want a guy like Kyrie Irving because he would just argue. And even when another guy like a Gordon Hayward would take a last-second shot, he'd be the guy that's just very passive-aggressive. He's not even like a Kevin Garnett. Like, I'm sure as a coach, David, you'd rather have a Garnett that would get in your face and kind of always be open, like a Garnett or a Draymond Green, than a passive-aggressive, quiet, mercurial character.
I would agree with that. Though here's what I'm going to go back to with that comparison you just said about Kyrie and Brad Stevens. I think a lot of last year that had to do with Kyrie Irving. Everyone's quick to praise Brad Stevens. I'm going to criticize him right now. It's not knowing your personnel last year, and in certain senses, you didn't adjust to having Kyrie ever on your team. I get you can say, well, Kyrie has to adjust to him. Most of the NBA, where those guys make a lot more money than the coaches and things like that, he never wanted to adjust. He just figured that Kyrie would adapt to the mold of basketball that the Celtics played. When, in some way, it should have been both, but it was zero. It probably actually was more Kyrie adapting to the Celtics than ever, Brad Stevens ever tried to adapt to Kyrie, and I can tell you that for a fact if you watch some stuff,
But the personnel is not conducive for Kyrie to play hero ball because it's a lot easier to play hero ball when you have Joe Harris instead of Jason Tatum jacking up like those long twos. And Al Horford, you really think Al Horford's going to sit and wait around? It's like the team also had a ton of success. Like they made the Eastern Conference Game 7 finals, so you still had Scary Terry, all these other guys on the team that it was almost like we go back to our Cowboys argument when Lincoln Riley. It's almost like the interim coach did such a spectacular job. So bringing in Kyrie coming back, it really did fracture the team was really good before Kyrie, though. That's my argument to you, is that they were so far gone they couldn't adjust. Like, this was a good team that made Game 7.
I'll put it this way, though, okay? If you put that same Celtics team that came in from 2018 playoffs into last year's playoff format, there ain't no way in heck that they're making the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, the 2018 Eastern Conference is probably historically the worst Eastern Conference you ever saw. I mean, a bad Cleveland Cavaliers team came through, and they get swept off the floor by the Golden State Warriors in 4 games,
Yeah, I get, but Tatum was so much better the year before because I just think that he had that freedom. And Kyrie Irving,
you got to look at Danny Ainge. Look at Danny Ainge. Look at Brad Stevens. They're the ones who screwed it up. I mean,
but they didn't. They didn't screw it up. They didn't screw it up at all. Actually, they actually sold. Listen, if they kept Isaiah Thomas, he would have broke his hip again. I mean, they traded Isaiah Thomas straight up for a Kyrie. They took a shot, and I don't blame them at all for doing that.
You screwed up by not adjusting. You absolutely screwed up. You want the reality is the Celtics will never be as good as they could have been without Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is a selfish player, this, that, the other thing. I would get that. They'll never be as good without him because they just couldn't figure out a way. And Brad Stevens, for as good a coach as he's been, did not figure out a way to make it work with a superstar. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If Brad Stevens can't figure out a way to adjust to having a superstar, then he is not a coach in the NBA and go back to college and be a great coach there. How about that?
I love it. I love the take. I love coming at
because
Brad.
The NBA is driven by superstars.
I think that this Kemba Walker Celtics team is actually going to be great, and I'm excited for it. I mean, if they played last year, if you had a cohesive team, if you have a Brad Stevens team last year with Scary Terry, you think they wouldn't beat the Milwaukee Bucks. I just think in 2017 that team looked better.
They don't beat the Milwaukee Bucks.
I trust Brad Stevens. I trust Brad Stevens and this team. I think they'll be better off without Kyrie. Kemba Walker will still be good. But yeah, I appreciate.
Well, you're right. They're going to be better off without Kyrie Irving because Brad Stevens didn't want to coach Kyrie Irving. How about that? Because he never wanted to adjust to the fact that if you have a superstar in this league, how about this? Brad Stevens wouldn't have been able to coach Kevin Durant with the way he did adjust to him. How about this? He wouldn't have been able to coach Anthony Davis with the way he adjusted to him. How about this? He wouldn't be able to coach.
You don't think Kyrie's personality's batshit crazy? I mean, he was going off in the media doing all this extra stuff.
That. You have to adjust to your superstars in the NBA. That's why you trade for them. That's why you pay them the money. These guys do things that the Jason Tatum, the Jaylen Browns cannot do in the NBA. That's a minute difference. Why are the point spreads in the NBA usually like 4 or 5 points? But the teams that are still favored by 4 or 5 points always still seem to win. And it's a small league. It's a small margin of error league. Well, those superstars are the reason why you get over the margin of error. Where Brad Stevens, really, he does not want to coach a superstar. He wants 12 guys to do it his way. That's why the Jay Crowders of the world work for him. And that's the reason why Jason Tatum, who hadn't come up with an ego yet before last year, worked for him. That's why Terry Rozier, before he had the ego, works for him, because all those guys will buy in. But even last year, you're going to blame this on Kyrie. Jason Tatum didn't buy into it. Jason Tatum wanted his whole different show last year. He thought he was going to be coming in scoring 24 a game. You know, Jason Tatum was as much of a cancer as Kyrie was last year. So Jaylen Brown was a cancer last year to the team. You know.
Yeah.
So basically, the fracture of personalities, Kyrie being the biggest one, yes, it all blew up in their face. But Brad Stevens didn't make it work, and honestly, the bigger problem there is Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge is an awful GM, and he just keeps on selling on you. We have all these draft picks, we have all these assets. He hasn't done anything with it. Save me the time. Save me it. You know, he's kind of saved his job over the years with telling you what we should be in the future. And the future basically is now, and it has never happened.
No, I mean I can't argue because they haven't even made an NBA. They haven't made an NBA Finals, and the drafting. I think
look at them this year.
Who did they draft? I mean, they drafted a couple of guys. I mean, their drafts are all right. I mean, they have Jaylen Tatum and Jason Tatum and Brown.
They drafted like Grant Williams this year, and maybe someone else. But
Carson
you look at them
Edwards.
This year, it's still like. I saw the Sixers last night as a team that looks like they could get a lot better. Well, the Celtics were light years behind that yesterday. I think the Celtics will be fine, but they're not going to go to the finals. Save me that. They're not even. They're not in the same playing field as the Bucks or the Sixers. They're not even close.
Alrighty, I'll save that take. I'm not quitting on them yet. I don't know what to say. I mean,
well, they could be a great 3 seed.
No, I think they could take the Bucks to the wire. I really do. How about let's talk about sleep? Let's talk about sleepers.
The Bucks.
What?
Let's talk about the Bucks real quick. The team that won the most games in NBA history by 10 points or more in an 82-game season. But let's just sweep them under the rug like they're garbage because.
Fine. Talk about the Bucks. Go ahead then. Talk about the Bucks.
No, I'm just saying. No, let's just sweep them under the rug because they ran into what last year? The best player in the NBA, Kawhi Leonard.
But listen, okay, Chris Middleton's your second best player on this team. I mean, he's you lose Brogdon. I mean, who's their point guard? You have Eric Bledsoe and Dellavedova playing crunch time minutes with Pat Connaughton. I mean, you really think that this team's deep enough?
Yeah, if they shoot the piss out the basketball, you have what probably is the second or third best player in the NBA. You have Middleton. Just think about the Bucks that. You as a non-basketball person, you're going to say, people who watch the NBA who have never played it will not realize what the Bucks have is almost impossible to guard. You have a 7-footer that needs to be double teamed if he comes into the lane, right?
Yeah.
And then you surrounded him with shooter. It's a very tough thing to guard. You know, the what's it called couldn't do it last year. The Celtics. Your Celtics could not do it last year, and that was without Brogdon. Remember that.
Yeah, I understand how they're spreading it, you know. I understand it.
Spreading it, and Giannis, you know, Giannis is one of these all-time players. He's gonna be a little bit better this year. He might take that step to be the best player in the NBA by the end of the year. I mean, he was the MVP last year. You know, if it's not for the fact that what's it called, Kawhi Leonard just absolutely takes over 4 straight games, we're talking about the Bucks as the champions this year because they would have beaten the Warriors
with the injuries. Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, well, I'll tell you right now, with KD, they still probably could. The Bucks matched up better to the Warriors than they did to the Raptors.
Do you think that Brook Lopez could have been? Brook Lopez has been elite for that team. He's a very, very good player. Like he's a two-way player. Eric Bledsoe needed to play better last year, and he's not a bad player.
I would agree with that. And he just didn't. I think Eric Bledsoe holds them back some. I would 100% agree.
No, and they were a juggernaut. They were a juggernaut last year, and even against the Celtics, the barrage of threes and Giannis. I'm not disagreeing with Giannis Antetokounmpo, but I just don't think that the gap is so large. And listen, they're damn good, and I don't know, man. It's just like I still think the Sixers could have handled them, though, with the way the Sixers can defend. And it's just tough to win an NBA championship. I mean, Giannis has to be so good for that team to win a championship.
I think the Sixers and the Bucks are in a league of their own in that Eastern Conference. And I think the media, and once again, it's the Danny Ainge, will tell you that the Celtics should be a lot better than they actually are.
How about this team? Let's talk about sleepers in the Eastern Conference. So teams that looked a lot better, teams that impressed you last night. I think the Miami Heat are really impressive. I think they look like a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference.
So the thing about the Miami Heat is every year I don't know about that because every year, you know, the Heat they look great, and then they went on a huge run against the Grizzlies last night. I get that. But they were still losing to the Grizzlies most of the game, a bad Grizzlies team, you know.
Yeah.
The thing about the the Heat that I just don't know is every year is a lot of expectation for them. And if you want to talk about a cancer, look no further than they've got the biggest cancer the NBA has ever seen in Jimmy Butler. There is no doubt about that. That they have a bigger cancer than you want to talk about Kyrie, this, that, the other thing. That's the guy who right there, he will divide a team. Like I won't be surprised if Jimmy Butler is requesting a trade in a week.
I'm glad that we can disagree on this. That we could disagree on this opinion because Jimmy Butler. First of all, he's hanging out with Tyler Hero. He's a great veteran player, and you look at Andrew Wiggins and Andrew Wiggins and that Timberwolves team was weak. How was Jimmy Butler under Tom Thibodeau when he was a young kid? When he was with Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson and those veterans. He really fit in well. And Jimmy Butler with the 76ers, he fit in well. He was loved in the city of Philadelphia. And Miami Heat, it's his team. Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, the organizational structure is there for Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's going to be nothing but a great Miami Heat player. He's going to have great success there, and he's going to elevate his team. I think Dion Waiters on that same team is so much more of a cancer. They got to get rid of Dion Waiters immediately. Jimmy Butler, he wanted to get out of Minnesota. He didn't act great there in Minnesota. He really didn't, but Miami is his style of team, and just these guys, I mean, the guys like Chris Silva and Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero, these are tough guys that Jimmy Butler gets along with. So I think it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler, you're totally off on this take of Jimmy Butler not being the biggest cancer in the NBA. It's like the guy's an absolute nutcase. I mean, the guy's a great player. There's no doubt about it. Jimmy Butler, it's only going to work until it doesn't, if that makes sense. You're talking because you just contradicted yourself in your whole point there. It worked great with Tom Thibodeau, with Taj Gibson and stuff like that in Chicago, right? Who did he have last year that he was begging to get away from? Taj Gibson, Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota. So it only works until it doesn't for Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler, it might not be this year, okay? Give it next year when this team doesn't do as well. You're overvaluing Kendrick Nunn. I mean, I love Kendrick Nunn, but we're overvaluing him a little bit here. Chris Silva, let's not overvalue. Let's not forget what this team was last night for 3/4 of the game. They were losing to a very bad Memphis Grizzlies team. Yeah, the Grizzlies, they went archaically cold last night. This team will be a 5-6 seed. I don't see them being that great this year.
You don't see it being a 4 or 3. They could be the 3.
I don't see it because you got to realize that this team has a major lack of talent, and I think that they're going to struggle to win games in the Western Conference.
Just defensively, though, with Justice Winslow dropping 27, I mean, he could take a huge leap. I mean, Justice Winslow this year.
Well, let's pump the brakes on when you play these bad teams opening night. Let's pump the brakes. I mean, they were always going to beat the what's it called? They were 8-point favorites against the Memphis Grizzlies without what's his name, Jimmy Butler. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. The Memphis Grizzlies are a really bad team. They're always going to win that game, and they just went on a big run the fourth quarter against a team that features like Dylan Brooks, Valanciunas, who no one in the NBA wants. Jay Crowder, who no one in the NBA wants right now.
Grayson Allen,
who I'm surprised didn't trip everyone on the floor last night. I mean, let's pump the brakes on the Heat a little bit. I think they're going to be a playoff team, but also the thing about Eric Spoelstra, probably the most overrated coach in the NBA. Guys, every year seems to, the last few years, miss the playoffs. There's every excuse in the book, but this team, I think this is a broken team. This team will be okay if they somehow figure out a way to get a Chris Paul or someone in there else, but
no, I don't want a Chris Paul in there actually. Because
you do want a Chris Paul there.
No, Dragic. You got to allow Kendrick Nunn to grow in this league as a point guard, as a hybrid
about
guard.
That. You're with Jimmy Butler. You need to win now. You want to grow in the league. Then you know what? You're not going to be a 3 seed. If you want to actually compete for something, you got to bring someone in that can play.
Chris Paul is not good anymore. Chris Paul is nothing but a floor spacer. He gets hurt. He chokes in the play. You don't want a Chris Paul in there. He's damaged goods.
Will be requesting a trade next offseason, Spencer. That's the thing about Jimmy Butler. You're trying to bring in a superstar at all costs next to him, or this guy will not be there past this year, or he won't be a happy Jimmy Butler past this year. That's what you got to realize with these NBA superstars. They control the league, and Jimmy Butler is the example of it. He'll sign any contract anywhere, and then what will he do? He'll march into that front office and say, I'm not playing anymore, trade me. That's why they need to go and get a player for him. I don't care about the development of Kendrick Nunn when it comes to Jimmy Butler. You've got to go get a player. You've got to appease these guys. It's a superstar-driven league. You know what? Tell Kendrick Nunn, let's go get, if you want the development of Kendrick Nunn, let's go get Brad Stevens as our coach, and we'll trade Jimmy out of town, and then we'll just see how well these guys develop. And we'll call them the overachieving Heat.
I appreciate the take.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
No, I love it. My take, how about this one? I think the biggest cancer is Russell Westbrook in the NBA.
No, I'm going to tell you right now, it's firmed as Jimmy Butler. This guy has created the culture of was signed the contract, and then once the contract is signed, go to the front office and demand a trade. So I'll say it's Jimmy Butler.
Okay.
I don't think it's even close.
Okay, let's talk about your guy. Let's lighten up the conversation. Let's talk a little bit about R.J. Barrett. Let's talk about the New York Knicks. I mean, the New York Knicks last night, they played a good 3 quarters. R.J. Barrett looks like he belongs. I mean, tell us about the Knicks last night, all right? Tell us that story.
Knicks were the Memphis Grizzlies last night. For about 3.5 quarters, they played well. Okay, great. They're a bad team. They've cornered the market on 6'8" to 6'9" guys that can kind of put the ball on the floor, kind of shoot it. They're a bad team. They lost to the Spurs. What do you want? There's nothing else there. R.J. Barrett goes to the basket. He scores. He still can't shoot. The Knicks stink. My favorite team. They're dysfunctional. They're awful. I know what they are.
Yeah, they couldn't get a bucket in the fourth quarter yesterday.
No, and they
You know what? In the half court,
playmakers.
that's the thing. That's when you can separate the good teams from teams that are not good in this league, is that when you need buckets in the fourth quarter in the half court, that is when you see what teams can manufacture baskets, which teams can manufacture points, and the Knicks just can't. It was iso ball with Morris, and when the Avalanche hit, and when Greg Popovich and that team, and Murray and Bryn Forbes and those guys, and DeRozan and Rudy Gay, when they got serious, when the game got serious, instead of playing playground basketball, that's when the Knicks had zero chance, and there's zero infrastructure there. Their point guards are not good. It's Elfrid Payton who just can't score, can't create, and there's no structure to this Knicks team. There's no firm starting five. Alonzo Trier shouldn't be playing. I think he's the most overrated player in basketball, Alonzo Trier.
He played 5 minutes last night. He started the game, and that's all he played. I mean, Alonzo Trier, I can't even go into that because he played like 5 minutes and then play after that. I think that was all just a stunt, you know.
How about Kevin Knox? He should be playing at the end of the games.
I don't disagree. I mean, I'll go back to this. All right. I mean, are we ready to anoint the Spurs a 3 or 4 seed in the West? I mean, you're talking about a bad team that basically it bogs down, very similar to the Memphis Grizzlies. It bogs down to the point where, when in the fourth quarter, what makes a playoff team, or you know, it's a small margin this league. You know, they lost by what yesterday, like 8 points. The next, it's small margins. And basically, they don't have a point guard. Fizdale said the whole preseason, I don't know who my point guard's going to be. Well, what did he do last night? He didn't start a point guard. That was a great move, Fizdale. But it wouldn't have mattered anyway. When it comes down to the team's a long ways away, you know, maybe they should be the team that trades for Chris Paul because, you know, shit, they need a point guard as much as anyone, and there's no free agent that's willing to sign there anywhere over the next 2 years. So, you know, let's bring him in. Maybe we'll become an 8 seed. But
yeah,
all jokes aside, like they are what they are. They're flawed. You're just hoping that over the next few years that, you know, you get what's his name, RJ Barrett, to develop. And maybe the shed of light that I was really happy about last night is that in a lot of ways, if somehow you can get some superstars with them, you know, Julius Randle looks like a steal at that $20 million a year over the next 3. I mean, yeah. Julius Randle's as good as it gets at that position. That, you know, that's small ball 5. It just, you know,
yeah,
he just played for a lot of bad teams.
No, it was a fun night in the NBA. I mean, last night, the Utah Jazz debuted last night. We also had, you know, the Hornets winning. That was a lot of fun with P.J. Washington. But I want to talk, the last thing I want to go into about NBA basketball and to kind of conclude our podcast is I want to talk about the Utah Jazz. And I think Bogdan Bogdanović, I don't think this guy is very good. And the Utah Jazz, I love them getting Mike Conley, but Bogdanović can't play any defense. And I wish that they would have stuck with like a Trey Lyles over Bogdanović. And I don't know. The Utah Jazz, I don't know if they're going to have enough firepower. I mean, maybe Donovan Mitchell could take that step. They do have Rudy Gobert. They're going to need everybody to stay healthy. I just don't know about Bogdanović and Joe Ingles, and I think this team does have a ceiling. So I just think Utah is good, but not great. I don't think they're really a contender in the West.
So I don't think they're a contender. I think the take on Bogdanović is a little extreme, that he's not any good. I think he's a very good player. I think he had a bad night last night. I mean, the guy's a decent defender. He's a plus defender in the NBA, actually, if you look at the analytics of it. But yeah, I mean, I would totally. There's two takeaways I have from last night, and I've kind of had the same takeaway a little bit off the Jazz point. The Jazz definitely have a ceiling. Jazz won the game by 5 points last night. Conley had an awful night. I think he was like 1 for like 20. I mean, I don't think that was the exact number, but he was 1 for like maybe 16, 17. I'm not 100% sure what that number was, but he was awful. But the other takeaway I'll have is that the Thunder, now they're not going to be a playoff team, but they're a lot better than people are going to give them credit for. I think they actually got a lot more talent than people do realize on that team still. So, it's kind of, you kind of like you're assuming that the Thunder are just going to roll over them. I mean, the Thunder are pretty decent themselves. They're going to win some games this year. They could be, depending on how, things shake out, they could be right there for an 8-9 seed, obviously not out of it, but they're a lot better than people think.
Sam Presti did a spectacular job.
Right there at that 4. What?
Yeah, Sam Presti did a spectacular job. I mean, so far.
I think Presti. Let's we talk. Everyone wants to crap on Chris Paul. I get some of the things about it. The Houston Rockets before Chris Paul get hurt last year are literally one game away and complete control of the series of going to the NBA Finals, and they would have steamrolled the Cleveland Cavaliers. Chris Paul gets hurt in that game 5, in the last minute of game 5 in 2018, when they're up 3-1, whatever it was, 3-2 in the series,
Yeah.
And they probably win that series because the Warriors at that point looked like they had no interest, had no, what's the right word, answer for that Rockets team. Chris Paul was at his best there. Last year, Chris Paul played very well in the times that he didn't play with James Harden. For whatever reason, the friction became so great last year that James Harden and Chris Paul, it couldn't work. But when you put his numbers on the floor without James Harden, his numbers would reflect that he was a top 3 point guard in the NBA. And small sample sizes, but, in that about 12 to 13 minutes a game, he was elite in every number, And people kind of forget that. Chris Paul last night played very, very well for the Thunder. You look at the numbers, he was great. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an emerging superstar in this league. Yeah, not a superstar. I don't know if he'll ever get to that level, but he's an emerging star in this league. He'll be an all-star one day. Back-end guy, top 20 guy in the NBA probably.
Wow.
Danilo Gallinari, I wouldn't say wow to that. Just look at the guy and watch basketball, and you'll see it. And the guy has every tool there is, and his jump shot's improving. It's not a wow comment. It's just, the guy. You could have seen that at Kentucky at the second half of the year in Kentucky when he was there. What changed for that team that people didn't think that was that good at Kentucky, that kind of underachieved, but they put Gilgeous-Alexander at point guard. It's not a wow comment.
Well, he got picked 12 over. He got picked 12th overall though in the draft.
Yeah, but let's put it this way: you have idiots running NBA teams, but that's neither here nor there. But
I love it. I love it.
What's the big reason that the Clippers made the playoffs last year? It's because Gilgeous-Alexander, he played really, really well last year. He as a rookie played very well. You couldn't defend the guy. He was able to get the ball out. So then you add Danilo Gallinari. You still have Steven Adams. You still have some of these guys on the bench that are capable players. The Thunder that everyone was talking about, this is an awful team. They're set up for years to come to kind of be similar to what the Celtics were. This team that has a
Do you
big
think
future.
Paul is going to stay there?
What?
You think Paul is going to stay there?
No, but you know what's going to happen? Well, Paul has to stay there until he gets traded. So, yeah, he but if they do trade him, Paul's he's going to play at a level that people are going to remember. This guy's still one of the elite point guards in the NBA. And people kind of forgot that with the fact that you're playing alongside James Harden. Last night, the guy was clearly in a class above Mike Conley. This guy's still one of the elite 5 guys in the NBA that maybe he's not the guy who's scoring 25 a night, but he does things. He's one of the better defenders. He's a really good player. And what's going to happen is the Thunder were really, really smart this offseason. They could have offloaded him to the Heat for basically nothing, right? That's what they could have done. No, they're going to let this guy pump his value back up. And then there's going to be someone who I think it will be the Heat or someone similar. And it might be the Lakers too, but I don't think the Lakers have any assets anymore, so I don't think that they can make a trade for him. Someone's going to give up a lot for him because they're going to realize they're still in that win-now mode.
Yeah, the reason why I think people they doubt Chris Paul is the playoffs, or it's the personality of Chris Paul, the whining about the calls, always on the officials. That people
Everybody
just
in the NBA. Show me the superstar who doesn't whine about the calls.
yeah,
in the
they're
NBA.
just
Name
he just alienates some people. He alienates a
no.
couple of
Let's
teammates.
go back to that point. Show me the superstar that doesn't whine.
I think Dame Lillard. I would answer.
I think he whines, but yeah.
Let me Donovan Mitchell, Dame Lillard, De'Aaron Fox, Trey Young.
De'Aaron Fox is not a superstar. Trey Young's not a superstar.
Luka Doncic.
You don't watch them enough to know if they whine.
Yeah, how about here's the superstar in the NBA. Trying to think.
Might be the guy.
Huh?
Dame Lillard might be the guy who complains the least. So all I'm saying is these guys, they whine every fucking play. I mean,
how about Steph?
I mean, LeBron whines.
Curry?
Leonard bitches more than fucking what?
Curry,
talking about these guys whine every. Watch the games and you'll realize these guys whine every single play.
Yeah, I get it.
I wouldn't say that. I'd say the thing is that he's got like this kind of false rap about him, but. I mean, if you watch, you take it for what it is. Houston 2 years ago, before he gets hurt. The thing about Chris Paul, which is more of a valid argument than any of these, it's kind of you go to these things that really are not, statistically or really attributes of guys that you kind of just make them up in your head. Not me, but not you, but just media. Oh, the guy whines. He doesn't get along with his teammates, things like that. A real thing for Chris Paul that would concern me is maybe the injuries. The guy seems to be injury prone. I could agree with that,
Mm-hmm.
He has been injury prone in the career. When you go to things that are actually that you can point to, the injuries would be my biggest concern at this point, is that he does seem to break down. And if you would say as me, well, I don't want to trade for him because of injury, you know what? I would say, that'd be fair and valid. I mean, the guy's a little bit older. He's got a huge contract. But I don't think that's necessarily as valid in the point of most of these teams that would trade for him anyway are not going to be in the position to sign a free agent because they're already over the cap. And you just need to make the trade to make the trade. And, it's only 2 years. So, yeah, the money he's getting paid is the money he's getting paid, but it doesn't really affect the fans or anything like that. It's just a matter of how much you want to go after it.
Yeah. David, I appreciate the NBA show, man. It was a ton of fun. You just have a wealth of knowledge. And David, of course, David is an assistant basketball coach. David played Division I college basketball, one of the great high school players in Jersey. And Davey Horns is a basketball. You know a lot of basketball, and it's fun to educate not only myself but kind of the listeners. I love going back and forth per usual.
I love the argument, and what we get heated.
No, I love it. No, and when we get heated, it's not personal. It's part of the show.
We got to get the Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, just start yelling and just.
I know. I wasn't ready for the onslaught today, but I gotta come back, and I was too calm today, but I was kind of letting you tee it off today.
Hey, get ready for your game tonight, guys. Everybody, if anyone's down in the Philadelphia area, God knows what park. Spencer's got a big playoff game tonight. Going to throw about 4 to 5 touchdowns in flag football.
Are you trying to psych me up for this game? Maybe with how you were coming at me with the you don't want
you gotta bring the basically. What do I tell you whenever you call me on the phone and we're not on the podcast? You gotta bring your own energy every day in life. Just bring it. You gotta find that someone when you don't have the energy, you just gotta say to yourself, "No, I have the energy. I'm ready to bring it." And it's a mental mindset. Just gotta be psyched up and ready to go at all times.
Yep, and we got Davey Horns here. Thanks so much, man. You are the best. BYOG. It should be BYOE. That we might have to trademark that line. BYOE.
All right, buddy.
All right, take care, buddy. See ya. Welcome back into Rover Sports, the podcast. It's our second podcast of the day, and we are going to be talking a lot about the world of NFL football. And we got a heck of a weekend. October is one of the best sports months of the year. Davey Horns is back.
Sports equinox.
The equinox of the sporting year?
Yeah, it's sports equinox. It's like Saturday is the one day like where you have football, hockey, basketball, baseball. It all goes on all on the same day.
I don't get a lot of takes necessarily squarely correct. I mean, maybe I'd say like on my takes, maybe about 40, 50%, maybe 60%. If you get 60% of your of the hot takes right, you're doing a pretty good job. And
I'm probably more to 10 to 5%.
You're 10 or 5?
I'm joking, but
no, you're not. No, you're not. But the key with this take, and
I
it also
like
depends on the severity of the opinion. It depends like how obscure the opinion is. And I just thought that Adam Gase was a nightmare hire for the New York Jets. In the offseason, Adam Gase, this entire offense, we went to the first preseason game with Sam Darnold, and I was like, damn. I'm getting a little bit hesitant here with Adam Gase and this team, but now Adam Gase, it was a disgusting performance against the Patriots, but almost an even bigger storyline, Dave. You've probably heard about this because you hear about everything New York sports, is that Kelechi Osemele's a guard on their team. He went to 3 doctors that told him that you need a shoulder surgery, and the New York Jets literally bullied this guy and held him against his will and told him, like, you got to suck it up and your doctors are all liars. Like, have you heard about this story? It just is the Jets are acting like complete dictators. And even like complete dicks, we can remove the dictators. It just seems like this is a complete open fire, dumpster fire.
Well, first of all, I 100% side with I can't pronounce his name, Mr. Osemele or whatever his name is. That's not disrespect for him. I just have a hard time pronouncing it.
Yeah, it's Osemele. You got it perfectly right.
Okay, so I side with him on this one, but we're going to get to a bigger point on that in a second. If you're not healthy, you owe it to nobody to go out there and play, a la Andrew Luck, a la some of these guys. If you're not healthy and you can't play, you can't play, okay? But I think what this kind of brings light to, it's kind of that culture of the NFL that the NFL is trying to get away from, and they're trying to sprint away from this culture, but you can't completely get away from it. For years, probably from like 2010 before that, it was that culture of, I don't care what the injury is, get on the field. That's the culture. That's with the concussions, with all these injuries, they'll pump you with the opioids. It doesn't matter. Get on the field by any cost. That's the culture. And what you're seeing is now, guy went and got outside counsel for an injury that it's legitimate. He can't play. A lot of Osemele's problem was that, the back and forth was they were deeming him healthy and he wasn't playing. So they were entitled to a big cap savings. And like, it gets weird with the activating and then being hurt. And if the team doctor doesn't say you're hurt and you don't want to play, you don't get all your money. It gets very bizarre. I'm not an expert in all that, but I know that you don't get all the money if you're not active, if they say if you're not like officially hurt by team doctors. And these team doctors, who they work for, obviously, the team. And those doctors should be ashamed of themselves for even saying that, giving the information to the Jets that this guy could play when 3 independent guys, doctors, not just guys, different doctors come out and say this guy is hurt, he cannot play, he needs a surgery. I think this looks bad on the organization in general. I mean, I think I've kind of just shed light on that. I mean, it's embarrassing. I think if I'm Woody Johnson, and I know as hard as it is because I go to the Shermer thing and this saying you don't want to fire guys because you'll owe guys a lot of money, you're a billionaire. It might be time to just completely clean house on everything. I know they got a new GM who really has no bearing on this team, so I don't know how much, I don't know where the answer is. But this is really bad, in my opinion.
Here's my hot take, and you and I agree on this, actually. I mean, this year, like, if the Jets have an opportunity to take Jacob Eason, I just think the Jets should pull the trigger on it. Eason's going to be a lot better pro quarterback than Sam Darnold. This defense is already really good. They just need a quarterback to run this offense. They need about a receiver. Their offensive line, they could pick up pieces here and there in free agency. I mean, the Jets are actually close to being awesome. I think that the Jets defense is even terrific. You can even have Greg Williams and then have a young offensive coordinator. Greg Williams is just really doing a great job actually with the defense. And I just think it's time to move on from Sam Darnold. I mean, the guy is scared against the blitz. He has no arm strength at all. Like, people want to burn Trubisky down, and I don't know if it's maybe this coastal elitist of the media. You know, I really think it's the media. He went to California. He's a Southern California guy. Trubisky's a Midwestern kid. He goes to North Carolina. It's just they want to run Trubisky out of town, and with Sam Darnold, he just gets a free pass for everything in the media, and it's sickening. And this is one of the takes that I've been correct on. I trashed Sam Darnold, even to a level that I felt even bad doing when he was selected by the Jets, and he's just not a good quarterback. He is not good.
You're right. I mean, I'm a Giants fan. You're a Giants fan, so we'll see this very similar way. And there's still a lot of Giants fans who will feel opposite the way that we feel, that Darnold should have been taken over Saquon. Well, Darnold is one of these guys who, what was his college career made on? A few really big games in the Pac-12, a conference that, let's not call it for anything that it isn't. It's been a really bad conference for the last 4 to 5 years. Darnold played in that conference during that time, and it still is a bad conference. I mean, for whatever the take is on USC quarterbacks, these guys, you're right with the elitist status. Like, these guys still get picked in the top 10 all the time. It's sickening. And since Carson Palmer, it really hasn't been anyone who's really that good. And even before that, there's a lot of guys you can point to. It's just like,
it was the Rose Bowl game, and you know what? Scouts just are obsessed with on the run. Can you make a throw on the run? That's all that these guys care about, is just on the move throwing.
I'll give you a theory on the scouts here. I'm going to give you a theory, and this is an off-the-wall theory.
Let's go. Oh, that's perfect for this show, then. That's perfect.
Off-the-wall theory that has nothing to do with football, because you see a lot of, these UCLA, these warm-weather quarterbacks always drafted, right? And I'm not saying that these guys aren't the best, but, why do these GMs and stuff like that love to go watch these guys play? Because the weather is warm. It's easier to scout these quarterbacks because you're going to these places more often, where it's a better place to vacation while doing your job than going to the Midwest or something like that. It's these cold weather places, and really, it's better to go there than go to Alabama or something like that. LSU
or Wyoming,
colder, or Wyoming to watch Josh Allen. It's easier to sit in Southern California and just, rave about this guy, or it's easier to go up to Oregon and stand in the Nike facility for, weeks on end and rate Justin Herbert. I'm not taking anything away from these guys. That's not what I'm doing. But what I'm saying is, it seems like it's just easier for these guys to fall in love with these guys, because it seems like they like to spend more time in these places,
And the access is better. And you're not going to trash you're not going to trash Clay Helton. Like kind of leapfrogging off your point. Like, if you're Rich Eisen, you can't burn bridges in LA. Your studio's in LA. You can't just trash a USC kid. You can't trash Josh Rosen and, his wealthy family out in UCLA. And the scouts there, that's really funny that you say that they love to vacation. Also, the defenses are softer. Where the weather is nicer, the defenses in the Pac-12 are soft. In Oklahoma, where it's dry, the aerial raid offense, it's usually all speed. It's all 7-on-7. And Jordan Palmer is the quarterback coach for Sam Darnold. He's also the quarterback coach for Josh Allen. I think Jordan Palmer is a great, great quarterback coach, but Jordan Palmer is really friendly with all of these radio guys, and he gets on their show all the time and props up Sam Darnold. So,
it all. I mean, it's all part of it all goes with that theory. I mean, I'm not saying that guys don't get drafted from other places. That's stupid. But I think that, these quarterbacks in an elitist position, definitely that, GMs, they don't like going into the middle of Oklahoma for, multiple weeks. They'll go and they'll watch. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is a first-round pick, but they'll go watch Jalen Hurts one time. They go watch Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray 1 or 2 times, but they'll sit out there for multiple weeks and, oh yeah, we love Sam Darnold. Like you'll see a USC game this Friday night, either probably between 5 to 10 GMs or high-level executives, and God knows what they're watching against USC versus Colorado. But guess what? They're going to be there because of the access to it, the access to the airports and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Daniel Jones and Duke football, I mean, that's why he got passed over. Nobody was going to Starkville to see Dak Prescott, but the Cowboys that were located really close by.
I mean, yeah, I would agree with it. It's just it's a great. That's why guys do go there. It's great access to everything. But yeah, I mean,
no, it's Carson Wentz, but that's a great take. And the thing about Sam Darnold is he just doesn't. Yeah, and you know what's an interesting theory I was thinking about too? That's kind of just thinking out loud here. Is that Sam Darnold was kind of, I know that they said his offensive line wasn't that good, and he did struggle actually against the blitz, but Josh Allen got the shit kicked out of him at Wyoming. Josh Allen, like, he was just going through terrible weather games with snow and sleet, and he just needed to be really tough, and that's why the Buffalo Bills said Josh Allen is a Buffalo guy. He's made for the city of Buffalo. He's a farm kid, and not Josh Rosen, who's a city slicker, who's kind of, you know, a suburban guy, and I'm kind of that same background as Josh Rosen even. I'm not as tough as a Josh Allen. But I think that quarterbacks that are tough and get hit a lot, like even a Nate Stanley or a Josh Allen, quarterbacks that get drilled, like maybe they actually have the toughness to play in the NFL. Like maybe that's something we should be viewing when we evaluate these guys.
Yeah, and here's what I'll finish this point. We'll get on to the next one. I'm not poo-pooing all these quarterbacks. What I'm saying is it's just, you know, there are certain things that just aren't taken into account. You're 100% right with Josh Allen, the Daniel Jones, and even maybe the Nate Stanley, who's really having a hard time with Iowa. But then you'll listen to certain NFL people that evaluate the guy and will just flat out swear by the guy. I don't see it yet, but at the same time, I can't poo-poo it because not like he's playing with a ton of talent either, you know. And when he did last year with Hawkinson and Noah Fant and, you know, a couple other guys, he looked apart many times, you know. So
yeah,
it's. I'm not even gonna get into a Nate Stanley rant, but what I'm saying is, everything is not as it seems all the time. It's different situations call for different evaluation, and it's, you know, not every offense is built on throwing the ball 10,000 times, and you know, weather conditions are one of the biggest factors in college football. You know, you're playing in the middle of Iowa, you're gonna run the ball a lot more when it becomes cold and a little bit wet, and you know, maybe it starts snowing a little bit more than in Southern California, where weather conditions are perfect 10 out of 11 games a year.
Let's talk about tonight. Let's talk about Minnesota, okay? I had this argument with a good buddy of mine, Jet Central. You'll meet him someday. He comes on this podcast. And we talked about Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and he said that Kirk Cousins is a failure as the Vikings quarterback because Case Keenum got him to the doorstep of a championship. And then he said guys like Carson Wentz, if Carson was in Minnesota, he did say Mahomes and some of the best, but he was saying guys like Watson. I don't even know. He might have dropped a Baker Mayfield. He said that there's a lot of the top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL, like Phillip Rivers and stuff, that if they were in Minnesota, he said that they would get to a championship. And I argued with him that there were maybe only about 3 or 4 quarterbacks, like the top of the top, that could be on this Vikings team with Diggs and Thielen and can elevate that team to a Super Bowl team. I think expectations are so out of whack with Minnesota. I think their defense is so overrated. They're not that good at getting after the passer. They're nowhere close to the Saints or the 49ers in terms of talent. Mike Zimmer and that team, maybe a couple of years ago when they had a soft schedule and a healthy Everson Griffin, that team with Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes, it's the same secondary every single year. They're a decent defense, and I think Kirk Cousins is actually carrying this Vikings team, and you're not going to get a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. So everybody that loves to pile on his contract, he's the 8th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I just think people need to relax and realize that getting to a Super Bowl, there's only 2 teams that get there every year. And like whatever guys are going to come for Minnesota. That's just what I've been saying about Cousins lately.
Well, let's preface the Case Keenum getting to the NFC Championship game just a little bit. Let's pull back a little bit. It took the miracle of all miracle plays for the Saints not to get into that game, first of all. So they got into that game, but, let's just call it what it was, absolute luck,
Yeah.
I mean, it was just absolute luck, a fluke play they get in, the Saints blew it, all right? So they get there. I think something that cannot be underlooked on part of Minnesota's success is the guy that we hate so much in New York. Pat Shermer.
Yeah. What?
Well, here's the thing. Just because the guy hasn't been a good head coach doesn't mean that he wasn't the perfect fit there as the offensive coordinator, if that makes sense. Just because you're not an inspiring individual, as an offensive coordinator, you don't need to be that inspiring individual,
that offense was okay. It was an okay offense. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah,
it wasn't even great.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think it is a loss. That's not, in some capacity, okay? I'm not saying that it's a huge loss. I think it's a loss, all right? So I'm just giving a couple prefaces of where we're coming from. And they got lucky to even get to where they were. I think Pat Shermer losing him is a loss on the offensive coordinator end, just for that team. But I think Kirk Cousins, you're right. Who else are they getting there? You went all in. I don't think that this team would be better with Case Keenum today than it is with Kirk Cousins today. I think it's absolutely asinine. I mean, last year the Vikings weren't great, but, Cook was never healthy,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big loss. I mean, you said it completely right. There are 2 teams each year that make it to the Super Bowl. And I think the thing that happens in all of sports, and it's not just the Minnesota Vikings, and I think it's a lot of teams in every sport, whatever it is, making it to the Super Bowl in the NFL, what would deem you successful? You make it to the Super Bowl 1 out of every 16 years if you made it to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are on the average playing field 1 out of every 16 years. It's a hard thing to look at. It's a hard pill to swallow, but that's the reality of it. You would be an average franchise at that point. And they are what they are. I think they're an average franchise. I think they would make it.
I think that they're a pretty good They're a pretty good team because I think that they're going to, in the North, I definitely think they're one of the wild card teams this year in the NFC.
I would agree with that. But I think they're an average like when I say they're average, I mean think about maybe a tad above average. What's a tad above average? About 9-7, 10-6, 11-5. If you're one of the wild card teams, you're just a small step above what is average in the NFL, So they're a good team. They're not. I think the expectations, as you say, I think their defense is overrated in a lot of senses. It's the pass rush isn't quite as good as everyone makes out to be. They pay a lot of money to Anthony Barr. They went out. They got Kirk Cousins. It hasn't fully worked out, but at the same time, he's not a full disaster. I think it's just the quarterback position is so scrutinized. I'm still kind of in the wait and see on it,
In Minnesota, I think Cousins is fine. And I think that he's just fine. I think he's pretty good. I know they brought him in to win a championship, but their defense, they just haven't had the money to really be elite. And the Packers, Aaron Rodgers is better than Kirk Cousins, but that's not an indictment on Kirk Cousins. And just Green Bay right now, like they survived the time when Aaron Rodgers was getting overpaid. And they got in a GM that was more aggressive, and Brian Gutenhurst has done a terrific job of getting in guys like Za'Darius Smith and like these mid-level free agent signings. And the Green Bay Packers now look pretty solid. I mean, they keep winning games. You are what your record says. I mean, I haven't been that impressed with Green Bay. I was picking like Oakland going into Green Bay's game. But Green Bay just has they have multiple ways to beat you. They can run it at you. They can defend you decently well. Aaron Rodgers is spectacular. The Packers are still a really good team. They're probably going to win that division now.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so let's power rank the NFC, all right? And I'll let you go ahead and power rank the 6 playoff teams. Tell us who's getting in, who's getting out. If you had to predict, like maybe who comes out of the NFC, power rank this conference.
Well, to me, I said it to you last weekend via text. I think if you were going to start at the top of it, it's the New Orleans Saints. I think they're the best team in the NFL. I know that might be a little bit controversial, but I really don't care. I think that they have proven that this defense from week 1 to today is probably the most improved unit on any side of the ball in the NFL. They've stepped up. They've become an elite defense over the last few weeks. Teddy Bridgewater has played great. And I hope to God that they do not play Drew Brees this week against the Cardinals. There's no reason. I think that they have clearly taken that step into what should be the best team in the NFC. The second best team coming out of the West, in my opinion, is the 49ers. I think them and the Saints could be a great match for the championship game. Elite defensive line. You know, they are that old school kind of that punch in the mouth team. They run the ball. Jimmy G is doing just enough. He's throwing a couple too many picks for my liking, but the quarterback play is good enough to win at a big level with that type of a defense. Third best team in the NFC, I would probably say the Packers right behind the what's-it-calls right now. The Packers are just behind the 49ers.
Uh-huh.
They're not quite the defense. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. That's my obvious opinion. The running game for the Niners is better. But that defense for the 49ers, I think, takes them and puts them in that number 2 spot. As much as it hurts me to say it, I actually think that the winner of the NFC East might actually be the the Eagles. They have a very easy schedule coming up. I'm going to go back.
You don't think the Cowboys can win that?
I think they can. I'm trying to figure. You're asking me to make a pick today. Oh man, because the Eagles still do play the Dolphins. You know.
But this Eagles team is it broken with Carson Wentz? See an overrated quarterback.
I think the Eagles will win. I think. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win the NFC East. All right. They play the Giants twice. They still play the Dolphins. You know, I could be wrong. I think they're going to win the NFC East. I'm going to take the Cowboys in my 5th slot. If they do play each other in a wild card game, I'm taking the Cowboys to beat them. For some reason, something tells me that they're going to get the wins. I could be wrong. I still think the Cowboys are better.
Yeah. I don't know. Then the Cowboys aren't making the wild card, though.
You might be right. You could be right. I think that the Eagles will win this division. I could be dead wrong.
Well, you know what? Well, this would be huge. We need Buffalo to beat the Eagles this week to stick them to 3-5. Yeah. Agreed?
Like this week will give me a...
Okay, because if they lose to Buffalo, listen to this. If they lose to Buffalo, they host the Patriots can beat them. They can be 4-6, and that would be great.
Yeah, it's hard for me to predict the NFC East today just based on the fact I really do think that the Cowboys are the best team in it, but I can't ignore what the schedule would tell you, that they have a more favorable schedule coming up.
The last 6 games, you're right, are absolute cake because they play. Seattle is not a good away team. They could possibly win that game. And then it's Redskins, it's Giants at home, it's Dolphins on the road, it's Cowboys. And Doug Peterson, he really does get hot late in the season. I mean, we saw that with Nick Foles last year. It's a big possibility, and they host Dallas week 16, so that's going to be the game. Absolutely. That's going to be the game.
Yeah.
Buffalo needs to beat the Eagles or else the Eagles are in the playoffs. I didn't look at the schedule that closely either.
My gut tells me today that even though I think the Cowboys are the best team, that the Eagles will get through. All right, so the next one I would say would be the Minnesota Vikings, and then it's going to be between Seattle and the Cowboys for that last wild card.
So you think the Rams are done?
I think that the Rams might have a little too much to make up at this point. I could be wrong. I mean, they're not that far out, but
I think that Seattle is the one that's going to fall. Seattle Seahawks are going to fall out, and they are the worst, most flawed team. Even with Russell Wilson, they don't have a lot of talent at all. I'll give you the power rankings right now of the NFC.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to go. My final power ranking would be as if it were playoffs. You know, that's just the way I'm going to go with it. Saints, 49ers, Packers, Eagles, Vikings, and I do think that the Cowboys will sneak in there at the end somehow.
That would be fun because they would be a dangerous wild card team. I think that for the NFC, it is going to be between the 49ers and the New Orleans Saints. I completely agree with you. Now, I think that those divisional games, I think that in the top four, I'm more confident that the Cowboys are going to be in the divisional round than the Packers, actually. So I'm going to put the Cowboys at 3. I know that the Packers just beat the Dallas Cowboys, but the Cowboys' defense is more consistent. They just have a high ceiling, and they won the NFC East last year. I'm just confident that the Cowboys are just going to kind of figure it out, but I'm not going to pick the Cowboys to get to an NFC Championship game. They haven't done that in like 25 years. I think that the Rams and the Vikings are your wild card teams, so I have the Eagles out of the playoffs. I also have Seattle really slipping down the stretch, and I do have to look at the schedule, but I do like the Saints like you talked about, and then the 49ers. And in a championship game, can Drew Brees power the Saints through? I think it's a lot who's going to be hosting the game. If it's in New Orleans, it might be too much. But guess what? I picked the 49ers before the year. I picked 49ers Broncos. And that Denver pick is not too good, but I'll take the 49ers still with my pick out of the NFC. So I'll take the 49ers. And then you want to open it up a little AFC power rankings before we head out here, David?
Yeah, sure, why not?
And we'll preview the games during our picks. Like, we'll preview some of these games during our picks. I actually have to run somewhere in like 5-10 minutes. Okay,
so AFC right now, I don't think much more needs to be said for number one. It's the Patriots. I'm not going to get into a long thing. They've just been the best. They are. Number two, right now, who do we got? Number two.
Are you going to take the Colts? Guess what? The Colts, like you said, man, you were spot on. They're going to win that division.
I have to say right now, I'm going between the Colts and the Ravens, and that's a scary thought.
Oh my goodness, you're still not taking Mahomes over Lamar Jackson? I mean, what about the Kansas City Chiefs need to be up here?
For a minute, I forgot there. I had brain fart. I had brain fart for a minute there. Okay,
it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's better than you saying that the Ravens are better than the Chiefs. Okay, it's better that you corrected yourself.
Yeah, I had brain fart there. Assuming that Mahomes stays healthy, I'm going to put them number 2. The Colts are going to be number 3. I think the Colts are just this completely underrated asset in the AFC. They've just kind of shown everything I said before the year. They're a tough team. The defense is good. They are not afraid to ground and pound on you. Jacoby Brissett brings a different type of a toughness than Andrew Luck. Obviously, he's not better, but it's just a different type of a game now. They're not afraid to kind of grind out a win on you. The 4th team in the AFC, it's got to be the Ravens at this point. I mean, it is what it is. There's no team in that West.
Yeah. Let's pause on the Ravens here. I will talk about this, okay?
Let's pause on the Ravens and tell me how they're not going to win a division.
Just Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's not going to work past next year, okay? I said Lamar would be a failure this year. He's a running back playing quarterback. He'll have a running back style career. Everybody's enamored with Lamar Jackson. It's kind of like Sam Darnold. Like, they're paid off to, like, talk about Lamar Jackson. It's kind of sickening, everybody in the media lining up behind Jackson like he's some persecuted player because, like, one Bill Polian said he should be a running back. It's like one guy. So it's the dumbest thing ever that Lamar Jackson is the most beloved player in NFL media. They try to push him up to the Mahomesian level. I'll tell you who in the AFC North I really like. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers to get 10 or 11 wins this year. I really do.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers are going to go like 9-1 down the stretch with Mason Rudolph. It's really the defense. I mean, TJ Watt is unbelievable. Stephon Tuitt. They have in the back end, they have Sutton. They have the Rookie of the Year defensively in Devin Bush. Their defense is ferocious as ever. Their schedule is really favorable. It's a really good team. James Conner is tremendous. I just love the Steelers, and I love this story. I think Tomlin wins Coach of the Year. I think the Steelers get in. I really do.
I mean, I don't agree. I mean, if you're saying the Steelers are going in, it's kind of like you're going against another one. Maybe not completely, but
I'm going against the numbers. I'm
against your Rams pick. Because they play the Rams at some point, and either one of those are going to need to win that game to kind of get into the playoffs, you know.
I kind of want to fix it. I want to say that I forgot about the Carolina Panthers in the NFC. I completely forgot about them. Completely forgot about the Panthers.
Okay. Well, we did what we did.
It's over now. I burned the Panther Bridge, even though Kyle Allen's one of my favorite players.
I didn't forget about the Panthers and the defense that's given him the best starting field position in the NFL per drive this year either. Great defense, by the way. But I don't see that the Steelers with Mason Rudolph are going to win that many games. I've looked at the schedule. They're going to beat the what's-it-called. We know they're going to win this week against the
let's do the schedule. Miami.
I mean, they go and then they play the what's-it-called?
Colts. That's a tough game.
Indianapolis Colts. I don't think they're going to beat the Colts. I don't think that they're going to beat the Rams, you know. I think that
it gets a little hairy, but then they play the Browns, the Bengals. They play the Browns twice. They could beat the Cardinals. They have Buffalo, the Jets, and the Ravens. Like, it's possible. Like, I really think it's possible.
Yeah, a lot of road games, too. Yeah, anything's possible. I don't see it happening for them. I don't think this team is that good.
I think they beat Indianapolis. I'll say that they beat the Colts. I think they get after the Colts a little bit. So.
Okay, but either way, I'm not saying that the Ravens are this great team, but they're better than the Steelers this year. I think the thing with the Ravens that not you, but I think a lot of people forget. I'm not anointing Lamar Jackson anything past this year, okay? But what the Ravens have is something that have worked in the NFL. It's very similar to the Colts. Everyone has gotten enamored with throwing the ball 10,000 times, right? You know, this is the way you win it in the NFL. What worked in the NFL for so long? Ground and pound. And what you're seeing is that these teams struggle playing this style of football where, we're going to put the extra blocker in. And yes, Lamar Jackson, what is he? He is a running back that throws the ball some, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not looking past Lamar Jackson past this year. I'm looking about them today. They're going to win a division because they grind out these games in a way that, the NFL is not comfortable playing in. It's just not comfortable playing this style of football. People rather play that spread it out, throw it 10,000 times. The Ravens are a team that, when they're going to struggle in the playoffs, when a team knows, okay, we're going to have to beat them. Ravens will win 10 games because they are that uncomfortable team for you to play. People don't want to play these guys. Mm-hmm. They're going to beat you up offensively, and in the playoffs they're going to be flawed. Okay, maybe they don't win a game, but teams don't want to play this team. They're going to win enough games. You go to Seattle and win a game. We can poo-poo Seattle, but you go there. This is a type of offense that will. I mean, the Steelers just aren't good enough to week in, week out put up the results that you're talking about winning 9 of their last 10. I'm holding you that prediction at 9 of the last 10 because absolutely crazy talk, but. We'll see. We'll talk in 3 weeks and see if they won 9 of their last 10. But
that'll be fun.
It is what it is.
That'll be fun.
It will be fun when they don't do it. But let's see. Well, I'm going to go with my wild cards. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. I'm really not that necessarily impressed with them in a lot of ways, but I just have to acknowledge that their schedule is easy. But their schedule is going to become hard down the stretch. And I think that they will get in there somehow.
No, they're good. They're going to win like 12 games this year.
Yeah,
11.
It's become a lot harder.
11 and 5.
But the thing I have to give to the Bills credit, they have not lost a game that they weren't supposed, that they are supposed to win, and that's so big in, in sports. I'm going to give, as much as I want the Raiders can do it, I'm gonna give my last wild card to Texans. I think that they'll win enough games and they'll be that last wild card team.
I agree with that. Deshaun Watson, indeed. Deshaun Watson. So I'm pretty much going to relay your thoughts. I think it is going to be Patriots, Chiefs, and then the 3 seed will be the Indianapolis Colts. The 4 seed, we could maybe have Pittsburgh unless the Ravens. The Ravens are a running football team. Whatever. I'll put. Let's see. I have to put the Steelers in. I said I would, and then I'm going to go with the Bills and the last team to make the playoffs. I'll just put the Texans in. I'll just say the Ravens will nosedive somehow. So I'll probably be wrong on that. But anyway,
what about Ryan Tannehill and the Titans maybe making the playoffs?
Ooh, that's a decent one. I'm going to do a film review today. It's possible.
I'm joking with you on that.
Oh, listen, it's still possible. I'm telling you, Tannehill could be the answer there. They're talking about Joe Burrow and replacing Tannehill already. I mean, we got to see. Tannehill really showed flashes. I know it was one game, but, change of scenery. We'll see. Mike Vrabel needs Tannehill to succeed. I'm excited, actually, about Tannehill. As a former
Dolphins season ticket holder myself for 1 year, Tannehill is like, when I was down for, I held season tickets for a year. It's basically to watch every other team in the NFL.
And what about Tannehill, please? What happened with Tannehill?
Tannehill, what you saw last week in Tannehill is kind of like the sum of his career. He'll look great one game, and then you got to wait till this week. Then he'll just look just as bad this week,
And then he'll come down. You're right. Hopefully, it was just Adam Gase for Ryan Tannehill's sake. David, it was a blast, man. I'm gonna get going now.
Good luck tonight,
running
buddy.
A few errands. Got a big night tonight, as we alluded to, and I'll save and edit this podcast at a very soon date. But it'll be on there. All right. So thank you again.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right.